Rising from Brooklyn's toughest projects to the top of the Forbes list should be a victory story. But what if the climb cost you the trust of the people who lifted you there? It's the 1980s and Marcy Projects. Gray towers, boarded windows, and a young Sean Carter plotting his escape. In a world where survival is a full-time job, Jay-Z wasn't just chasing money, he was chasing ownership. In business, equity means having real stake, control over the thing you build. From day one, Jay-Z understood that owning a piece was better than getting paid a piece. That lesson would define his empire. When Cristal's CEO dismissed hip-hop as undesirable in 2006, Jay-Z turned insult into opportunity. He boycotted Cristal and began spotlighting a then-obscure French champagne, Mirage. At first, it was just a statement, but years later in 2014, Jay-Z bought the brand outright, transforming a symbol of protest into a personal luxury empire. What started as outrage became ownership, and the gold bottle became his new crown. What looked like protest was also profit. Within a year, gold bottles glimmered in every club and music video. Jay-Z's activism turned marketing flipped outrage into millions. By 2021, he sold half his stake to luxury giant LVMH, turning cultural pride into generational wealth. This became his blueprint: blend justice with luxury, community pride with corporate power. The same strategy resurfaced when Jay-Z joined forces with Caesars Entertainment and SL Green to propose a Times Square casino. The pitch? Thousands of jobs, billions in growth, and economic empowerment for the people. But the people weren't buying it. Surveys showed over 70% of residents opposed the plan, calling it a Trojan horse, something shiny on the outside, destructive on the inside. They'd seen this before. When Jay-Z helped bring Barclays Center to Brooklyn, he sold it as hometown uplift. The result? Displacement, higher rents, and a wave of gentrification that pushed longtime residents out. Critics asked, was the casino just history repeating itself? New product, same extraction? Yet the issue isn't capitalism itself. Other groups, Italians, Jews, Chinese, Armenians, have used capitalism to build collective power without hollowing out their communities. They circulate money among their own. For many in Black America, though, the game too often crowns one winner while the rest watch from the stands. Jay-Z became the symbol of that contradiction, a genius at branding, selling not only champagne but also hope. His fans believed his wins were theirs. But if communities invest their trust and loyalty, shouldn't they see real returns? Schools, ownership, opportunity, instead of symbolism? That's the question shadowing Jay-Z's billion-dollar image. Was he using capitalism to free his people, or simply perfecting how to profit from their belief? Chapter 2. The Champagne Mirage. Buying influence, selling dreams. Jay-Z turned outrage into luxury. But was it justice served or justice sold? Golden bottles gleamed in music videos and presidential fundraisers, symbols of black excellence wrapped in gold foil. After Cristal's CEO made a racist remark in 2006, Jay-Z responded with moral fury, boycotting the brand and elevating a forgotten French label, Mirage. Overnight, Ace of Spades became the drink of resistance. But behind the moral stand was cold business math. Jay-Z didn't just protest, he positioned, owning Ace of Spades outright. He used public outrage as rocket fuel. Every purchase felt like protest. Every sale built his empire. It was a masterclass in leverage, using something small like collective anger to create something massive. Within a few years, the same bottle gathering dust was worth hundreds of millions. The campaign wasn't just about champagne, it was about control. Consumers believed they were buying into a movement, but the profits flowed one way, upward. Symbolic ownership replaced real ownership. Then came the encore, the Times Square casino. Same formula, higher stakes. Jay-Z promised jobs, investment, and uplift. Roc Nation wrote out glossy presentations and even hired NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton to calm safety fears. But critics saw containment disguised as empowerment. The celebrity blitz intensified. Roc Nation offered exclusive meetings with Jay-Z and Beyonce to sway officials. State Senator Liz Kruger famously declined, saying, "Why? I don't particularly like his music." Her bluntness exposed a deeper truth. Star power can't substitute for substance. Meanwhile, influence moved quietly. One community advocate who had opposed the project suddenly reversed her stance after receiving a $20,000 a month consulting role. Legal? Yes. Ethical? Debatable. That moment revealed how easily integrity can be turned into income. That's where the next financial lesson appears. Cultural capital, the value of reputation, credibility, and trust. Jay-Z possessed more than almost anyone alive. But when cultural capital becomes a commodity, it stops empowering and starts manipulating. Fans didn't just buy bottles, they bought belief. And belief once betrayed costs more than money to restore. The casino campaign ultimately failed, but the message lingered. You can buy publicity, not authenticity. Influence might open doors, but only integrity keeps them open. Chapter 3. Streaming social justice or selling out? The Tidal controversy. Jay-Z stood on stage beside icons like Rihanna and Kanye, fists raised, justice invoked, cameras flashing. But this wasn't a protest, it was a product launch. In 2015, Jay-Z unveiled Tidal, the streaming platform he claimed would revolutionize music and empower artists. He promised fairness, higher payouts, artist equity, and a challenge to exploitative giants like Spotify and YouTube. For fans, it sounded like activism with a beat. Support black ownership, Jay-Z urged. If you care about justice, subscribe to Tidal. Millions did, believing they were funding equality, not just entertainment. But beneath the sleek marketing lay uncomfortable contradictions. Jay-Z hadn't built Tidal from scratch. He bought Aspro, a small Norwegian company, for $56 million and rebranded it as revolutionary. His speeches mixed righteous outrage with corporate ambition, tying subscription sales to moral obligation. Yet the numbers and the optics told a different story. Despite branding Tidal as black-owned, leaked photos showed an overwhelmingly white executive team based in Norway. Fans who thought they were supporting black empowerment felt duped. The illusion of ownership collided with the reality of corporate structure. Then came the scandals. Reports surfaced of inflated subscriber counts and artists being shortchanged. Nicki Minaj went public about delayed payments, while smaller artists complained about opaque accounting. Jay-Z, meanwhile, had insulated himself financially through passive income, money earned repeatedly from an asset without active work. Whether Tidal thrived or failed, his wealth grew either way. By 2020, Tidal had barely 3 million subscribers, compared to Spotify's 345 million. Yet Jay-Z still walked away rich. In 2021, he sold Tidal to Jack Dorsey, the white billionaire co-founder of Twitter and CEO of Square. Tidal, a company many black Americans proudly subscribe to as a show of support for Jay-Z and black ownership, was now absorbed into another Silicon Valley empire. What begun as a movement for cultural control ended as another corporate acquisition, raising painful questions about who truly benefits when buying black becomes a brand strategy instead of a blueprint for shared power. Critics didn't hold back. DJ academics called Jay-Z a savant at turning culture into profit, accusing him of using his influence to convert community movements into corporate marketing. Even loyal fans began to flinch. The same people who once saw Tidal as a stand for fairness now saw it as another hustle. Proof that when hope becomes a business model, the people always pay the price. By the time Jay-Z sold Tidal to Dorsey, the narrative had flipped. What started as a promise of liberation had become a case study in monetized morality. Once fans realized they were paying for activism that didn't exist, the trust broke. And trust, unlike money, doesn't compound. Tidal's collapse wasn't the end, it was a revelation. Jay-Z had learned to convert every social struggle into a scalable product. And that playbook, activism as business, was about to take center stage again, this time under the brightest lights in America, the NFL. Chapter 4, From Advocate to Opportunist, Jay-Z and the NFL. Boycotting an entire league in the name of justice, only to cash in once the price is right, exposes the thin line between activism and opportunism. In 2016, Colin Kaepernick took a knee. He wasn't kneeling to disrespect the flag, he was protesting police brutality. That single act cost him his career. The NFL blackballed him, proving that speaking truth to power still comes with a price. Back then, Jay-Z stood with him. He wore Kaepernick's jersey, rapped about his courage, and urged artists to boycott the Super Bowl halftime show in solidarity. His message was clear: no partnership with oppression. But just 3 years later, in 2019, Jay-Z signed a multi-million-dollar deal with that same NFL. His company, Roc Nation, would now produce the Super Bowl halftime show and lead the league's social justice initiatives. The pivot shocked everyone. The man who once said no to the NFL was now sitting at its table. At a press conference announcing the partnership, Jay-Z declared, "We've moved past kneeling." To many, that sentence felt like betrayal wrapped in business language.
Talk about this.
Conversations you've had, the frankness and the seemingly open dialogue. Sorry to put it this way, but would you kneel or would you stand?
Would I what?
Would you kneel or would you stand?
Okay. I think we've passed kneeling. Yeah, I think it's time to go into actionable items.
Do you want people to stop kneeling?
No, I don't want people to stop protesting at all. Kneeling, I know we're stuck on it because it's a real thing, but it's a form of protest. I support protests across the board. We need to bring light to the issue. I think everyone knows what the issue is, and we're done with that. Everyone knows what you know what the issue is? You know why we were kneeling? Okay, do you know the issue? Yeah, do you know the issue? Yes? We all know the issue now. Okay, next. Where are we moving on next? And I'm not, again, so to be clear for the room, I'm not minimizing that part of it because that has to happen. That's a necessary part of the process. But now we all know what's going on. What are we going to do? How are we going to stop? Because the kneeling was not about a job. It was about injustice. Let me bring attention to injustice. Everyone's saying, how are you going forward? And Cap doesn't have a job. This wasn't about him having a job. Right? That became part of it. That became part of the discussion. He was kneeling to bring attention to injustice. We know what it is. Now, how do we address that injustice? What's the way forward? Does anyone else in here, anyone have any other suggestions of what's the way forward?
I agree with that.
Eric Reed, Kaepernick's teammate and close ally, called the comment asinine.
For one, when has Jay-Z ever taken a knee to come out and tell us that we're past kneeling? Yes, he's done a lot of great work, a lot of great social justice work, but for you to get paid to go into an NFL press conference to say that we're past kneeling, again, asinine.
ESPN's Shannon Sharp said what the culture was already thinking. Jay-Z asked artists to boycott, then signed the deal himself.
Skip, is just, I don't like how Jay-Z went about this, Skip, because I heard him saying that guys should not do Super Bowl.
There you go.
And then you turn around and now you're going to be responsible for hiring all the halftime acts at the Super Bowl.
Behind closed doors, whispers spread that Jay-Z had advised other artists like Jermaine Dupri to avoid similar NFL deals right before taking one himself. It wasn't just hypocrisy, it looked strategic. He told others to wait, then cashed in when the timing was right. Jay-Z defended himself, saying he wanted to change the system from within. And to be fair, halftime shows did become more diverse afterward. Dr. Dre, Kendrick Lamar, Mary J. Blige, Snoop Dogg, and Rihanna all took that stage. But as journalist Jamel Hill explained, the partnership itself was disappointing. She said the NFL wasn't seeking justice, it was seeking a black figurehead. In private meetings, owners like Buffalo Bills' Terry Pegula even admitted they wanted someone who could smooth things over with the black community. Jay-Z became that bridge, not between artist and activism, but between outrage and image repair. Rumors then swirled that Jay-Z was quietly pursuing ownership in an NFL team. That revelation made many wonder if his alliance with the league had always been less about justice and more about access. Was that kneeling solidarity ever genuine, or was it a strategic step toward billionaire status? The financial lesson buried here is about credibility as capital. In business, credibility functions like currency. It opens doors money can't, but once spent carelessly, is nearly impossible to earn back. Jay-Z's credibility, once built on defiance and integrity, was now collateral damage in his pursuit of influence. For the community, this partnership symbolized something bigger: the commercialization of protest. What started as a moral movement had been turned into an entertainment product. And when activism becomes business, the message gets bought, rebranded, and resold, often to the same people who started it. Jay-Z's NFL deal didn't just blur the line between justice and profit, it shattered it. The man once seen as a voice for resistance had become a case study in what happens when resistance itself becomes a brand. Chapter 5: High Stakes Casino, Betting Black Community Prosperity. Promising your community wealth, then building a casino that gambles away their futures, betrays trust in the cruelest way. December 2022, Times Square. Jay-Z stands under the neon glow of the world's biggest stage, announcing a new partnership between Roc Nation, SL Green Realty, and Caesars Entertainment. His pitch is polished: thousands of jobs, billions in revenue, and a new era of economic empowerment. The crowd applauds, the cameras flash, but behind the press release, locals feel a chill. To many New Yorkers, this wasn't progress, it was deja vu. They'd seen the same promises before in places like Atlantic City, where casinos once vowed prosperity. Economists such as Jonathan Kurtz later showed those promises rarely materialized. Casinos didn't create new wealth, they cannibalized it, redirecting local spending from small businesses to gambling floors, leaving behind poverty and boarded up shops. So when Jay-Z pitched his Times Square casino as a beacon of opportunity, residents called it what it looked like, a Trojan horse. Surveys showed roughly 2/3 of Midtown residents opposed it. Theater owners, restaurants, and activists feared a casino would trap tourists indoors, starving the neighborhood that made Times Square thrive. But Jay-Z pushed back with the same charisma that built his empire. "New York is the epicenter of culture," he said. "We can enrich everyone who visits." The language sounded righteous. The math didn't. Studies from the Urban Institute warned that casinos deliver short-term excitement than long-term decline. The wealth they generate rarely leaves the house. Still, Roc Nation went all in, deploying celebrity endorsements like poker chips. Fat Joe hosted community events. Alicia Keys praised the plan, and Reverend Al Sharpton lent moral credibility after Roc Nation pledged millions towards his museum project. Even actor Wendell Pierce joined in after the company promised funding for black theater programs. It looked like community unity, but the optics hid something transactional. When Vanity Fair revealed that several supporters had recently received donations from Roc Nation, critics pounced. Was this genuine outreach or influence for sale? The pattern was clear: celebrity visibility, strategic philanthropy, and pressure dressed up as empowerment. Here's the financial concept at play: opportunity cost. Every dollar spent inside a casino is a dollar not spent at a local business. Every tax credit or police resource dedicated to the casino is one taken from schools, housing, or entrepreneurship. Jay-Z spoke of creating opportunity, but opponents asked at what cost and for whom? Then came the infamous exchange that summed it all up. When Roc Nation offered State Senator Liz Kruger a personal meeting with Jay-Z to win her support, she declined, replying simply, "Why?" Their rep pressed on, "You know who he's married to." That arrogance told the whole story. Celebrity as currency, not accountability. In the end, the community called the bluff. The proposal was rejected. SL Green's CEO blamed anti-growth forces, but locals celebrated a rare victory, proof that collective resistance could beat billionaire influence. When the proposal was rejected, frustration erupted inside the boardroom. Mark Holliday, the CEO of SL Green, lashed out at community members, calling their vote a despicable display of cowardice, a lack of leadership, a lack of consideration for all the people who would benefit from this proposal. "We met the standard and then some." His outburst said everything the marketing never did. This wasn't about empowerment, it was about entitlement. Billionaires expected applause, not accountability. But outside those glass walls, the neighborhood told a different story. For once, the community had won. Residents who'd been ignored, displaced, and priced out finally saw power swing back their way. Proof that collective resistance could still beat billionaire influence. For Jay-Z, it was more than a lost deal. It was a reputational crash. The casino exposed what his brand could no longer hide. When empowerment becomes a marketing pitch, the community eventually folds its cards. Chapter 6: Behind the Smoke and Mirrors, the community's breaking point. When the casino dream finally crumbled, something much bigger cracked with it: Jay-Z's image. For years, his brand had been bulletproof, the kid from Marcy who outsmarted the system. But after Times Square said no, that myth began to fracture. This wasn't just a zoning defeat, it was a spiritual reckoning. People realized they'd been sold hope on credit. Roc Nation had promised everything: jobs, childcare, cultural programs, a new era of opportunity. But when community leaders asked for documentation, real plans, real numbers, the receipts never came. The glossy brochures vanished. The promises felt recycled. What emerged instead were murmurs about selective generosity, money flowing in the right directions to buy goodwill. Local activists flipped the script. "We didn't reject growth," one said. "We rejected exploitation." That line spread like gospel. For the first time, celebrity couldn't drown out evidence. The same faces that once symbolized empowerment, Fat Joe, Alicia Keys, Reverend Sharpton, now appeared like polished PR tools in someone else's campaign. The glow had dimmed. The public had grown immune to the marketing. What came next wasn't just political, it was personal. The casino's collapse became a cultural breaking point, where the community finally questioned the entire machine of celebrity capitalism. The idea that famous black success automatically equals collective progress. The people had seen enough. Here's the hidden financial lesson: transparency. In business, transparency builds investor confidence. In communities, it builds trust. Once that trust breaks, no amount of branding, philanthropy, or spin can buy it back. Jay-Z's credibility, once his most valuable asset, was depreciating faster than any stock. The empire built on authenticity was facing foreclosure from the very people who made it valuable. For decades, Jay-Z sold the dream that his rise was proof we could all rise with him. Now the community had seen behind the smoke and mirrors and realized some dreams aren't shared, they're sold. Chapter 7. Empire built on influence, friends, allies, or paid endorsements. What if the leaders you trusted to speak truth to power were secretly cashing checks from the powerful instead? As the casino backlash grew, a darker truth surfaced. Jay-Z's influence wasn't just earned, it was engineered. Behind the scenes, Roc Nation had quietly funded the same celebrities and activists now singing his praises. What looked like solidarity began to look like strategy. Influence is one of the most valuable currencies in business. It moves people, shapes perception, and builds momentum where evidence is thin. Jay-Z mastered it early, turning fame into leverage and loyalty into sales. But when influence becomes transactional, trust dies quietly in the background. Critics started connecting dots. Reverend Al Sharpton's glowing support coincided with a multi-million-dollar Roc Nation donation to his civil rights museum. Actor Wendell Pierce suddenly championed the casino after Roc Nation pledged $10 million to black theater programs he supported. Fat Joe and Alicia Keys, both Roc Nation affiliates, headlined community events praising the project. Each endorsement carried the same script: empowerment, opportunity, pride. Yet beneath the rhetoric, fans saw the receipts. This wasn't illegal, it was strategic philanthropy, but it exposed a moral loophole that money can't patch. When advocacy is bought, authenticity collapses. People who once trusted these voices now questioned every word. Was this community empowerment or corporate influence wearing black faces? Social media erupted. Fans accused Jay-Z of weaponizing culture, using beloved celebrities as influence brokers to sell what the community had already rejected. One viral comment by Killer Mike said it best: "If your movement needs a paycheck to sound righteous, it isn't righteous, it's marketing." By now, Jay-Z's credibility had mutated into currency, and the more he spent it, the less it was worth. The financial concept hiding here is reputation as equity. In business, equity represents ownership. In culture, reputation does the same. It's a form of capital you build slowly through credibility and lose instantly when it's sold. Jay-Z had spent decades constructing that equity. Now he was watching it devalue in real time. The fallout spread beyond Jay-Z. The very artists and activists who once amplified his voice found their own reputations questioned. When money starts dictating morality, everyone involved pays the price. The community finally saw what had been hidden in plain sight. Roc Nation's empire wasn't built solely on brilliance. It was built on bought belief. And when belief becomes a commodity, the truth can't compete. For the first time in decades, Jay-Z's influence, the fuel behind every billion-dollar move, was running on empty. The empire built on trust was cracking, and the sound was echoing through every block that once cheered his name. Chapter 8: When community good becomes personal gain. They called it empowerment, but empowerment without equity is just extraction wearing a smile. After the casino collapse, the illusion of collective progress finally shattered. Jay-Z's empire wasn't just about champagne, streaming, or halftime shows. It was about a formula that turned every social wound into a business opportunity. The blueprint never changed. Frame profit as progress, sell it as liberation, and count on the culture to clap while the money flows upward. From Ace of Spades to Tidal, from the NFL deal to the casino bid, Jay-Z perfected the art of transforming public pain into private gain. Each time he borrowed the language of revolution but kept the profits of empire. And fans, loyal, hopeful, proud, mistook visibility for victory. Let's pause on one word: equity. In finance, equity means ownership. In community economics, it means shared ownership. When success circulates through the people who built it. But Jay-Z's version of capitalism flipped that. His ventures offered representation without redistribution. The faces changed, the balance sheets didn't. That's the trap of symbolic progress. It lets one person's success become a stand-in for collective freedom. But representation without reinvestment is like a trophy with no team, shiny but meaningless. Economists call this hyper-individualism, the myth that one person's rise equals everyone's progress. Other communities, Jewish, Italian, Korean, Indian, play capitalism as a team sport. Profits build schools, fund businesses, and feed families. The black community too often gets the poster instead of the pipeline, a billionaire headline instead of a bank. And that's the contradiction Jay-Z came to embody, a revolutionary aesthetic built on a corporate engine. He once rapped, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man." Now the line feels prophetic, a warning that the business eventually swallows the man. The financial lesson is simple but sharp. Wealth means little if it doesn't multiply beyond you. Ownership without circulation is hoarding, not empowerment. Jay-Z's story isn't just about one mogul, it's a mirror. It shows how easily the pursuit of black excellence can turn into the performance of black capitalism. How the language of liberation can be used to market a product instead of build a people. Because in the end, the question isn't how high one man climbs, it's how many others rise with him. But Jay-Z's formula, turning pain into profit, outrage into ownership, didn't start in boardrooms. It began long before champagne and casinos, in the concrete courtyards of Marcy Projects. Because long before he learned to monetize culture, he learned to monetize survival. The same hustle that once sold poison on the block would one day sell hope in Times Square. Different products, same principle. Turn the struggle into a sale. And that's where the story takes a darker turn. From crack to casinos and the price the community keeps paying either way. Chapter 9, From Crack to Casinos. Jay-Z's pattern wasn't new. It had echoes from the past that resonated uncomfortably into his present. Jay-Z never hid his past. In fact, he wrapped it into legend. He sold crack in Marcy Projects. He admitted it wasn't just music that built his empire. It was hustling on the corner, stacking profits off a product that ripped his neighborhood apart. And for many listeners, that raw honesty made him relatable. He wasn't pretending to be squeaky clean. He told the truth about what it took to survive in a system that locked young black men out of legitimate paths to wealth. But survival doesn't erase impact. Crack cocaine didn't just fund sneakers and mixtapes. It left scars, families fractured, neighbors buried. Generations carried the cost of an epidemic that was as much political as personal. Fast forward to the 2020s, and the hustle looks more polished. No street corners, no cops, no paranoia. Now it's press conferences, glossy renderings, and Jay-Z promising jobs and opportunities in the middle of Times Square. But at its core, the logic felt hauntingly familiar. Crack preyed on pain. Casinos prey on hope. Crack drained wealth from families one hit at a time. Casinos drained savings from households one bet at a time. Different product, same extraction. And that's the uncomfortable truth. Jay-Z went from hustling poison in the projects to lobbying for illegal poison in Manhattan. The packaging changed, the damage didn't. Here's the stealth financial literacy lesson buried inside this parallel. Both crack and casinos operate on negative sum economics. That means the losses to the community are always bigger than the gains. In the crack era, the quick profits one hustler made came at the cost of health, freedom, and long-term earning power of dozens of others. With casinos, the flashy jobs and tax promises can't cover the long-term losses to family budgets, local businesses, and community wealth. In both cases, the numbers don't add up for the people. They only add up to the seller. And who got rich in each equation? Jay-Z. One hustle got him out of Marcy. The other put him in Times Square boardrooms. He's the common denominator. The community carried the fallout both times. This isn't about demonizing one man. It's about exposing the cycle. Because America has always dangled opportunities that feed off our neighborhoods while concentrating profits elsewhere. First, it was drugs flooding the block. Now it's casinos, payday loans, and liquor stores on every corner. The products change. The formula stays the same. Take the most vulnerable people, dangle an illusion of escape, extract their wealth, and package it as culture. The sting comes when we realize how these cycles are sold back to us. In the 80s and 90s, hustlers told themselves they were just feeding the block. In 2022, Jay-Z told us a casino would empower New York. The language is different, but the outcome is the same. The block bleeds while the hustler stacks. That's why the parallel matters. It forces us to see that scale doesn't equal transformation. Moving from crack to casinos didn't flip the script. It just upgraded the marketing. For black entrepreneurs, the lesson is urgent. Don't mistake survival hustles for liberation hustles. Don't let anyone sell you a community investment that extracts more than it gives. And above all, don't confuse representation with redistribution. A black face in front of a casino doesn't mean black families will see that wealth. It just means the extraction machine found a new spokesperson. Jay-Z turned crack into an empire, then tried to turn casinos into the same. Both made him richer. Neither built collective wealth. And that's the real parallel we can't afford to ignore. Chapter 10. The hidden toll. When the house wins, the community loses. Casinos promise wealth, but the numbers tell a darker story. They don't build it, they harvest it. Across America, researchers have followed what happens after the grand opening. At first, tax money rolls in and the politicians celebrate. Then the profits fade, spending drops, and the towns start bleeding red again. Dr. Lucy Dadayan of the Urban Institute put it bluntly. Gambling revenue is highly volatile and often deteriorates or decreases over time. Economist Jonathan Krutz found the same pattern. Casinos don't grow towns, they drain them. That hit lands hardest on black neighborhoods already fighting to keep each dollar alive. Every bet placed inside those walls is a dollar not spent at the barbershop, the diner, or the local church. The casino doesn't make new money, it just moves money out of the block. And those good jobs they brag about, most pay barely enough to survive in New York. Dealers live off tips from the same people losing their rent money. Turnover is brutal. Many quit within a year. They breathe smoke, handle drunks, and watch people break down at the tables. Some even gamble their own paychecks just to feel in control again. Then comes addiction, the quiet epidemic hiding behind neon lights. Studies from the University of Buffalo show that living near a casino nearly doubles your risk of developing a gambling problem. The University of Massachusetts found that most casino profits come from people who can't stop playing. Think about that, an industry built on loss. The business model only works when hope collapses. And where hope collapses, crime follows. MIT researchers found that violence jumps noticeably in counties after a casino opens. In Maryland, police reports near one new casino jumped from a few dozen to thousands within just 3 years. Those aren't numbers, they're families, cars, and peace of mind stolen from the neighborhood. Casinos also lower nearby home values. For black families already fighting to build generational wealth, that's another stolen ladder. Every time those lights switch on, the wealth of a community quietly dims. Even billionaire Warren Buffett called gambling a tax on the poor. It sells false hope to millions, while a few walk away rich. Every jackpot ad hides the real math. Hundreds of thousands lose so one person wins. For Black America, that's not opportunity, that's exploitation in designer packaging. We've survived slavery, redlining, payday loans, all dressed as economic development. Now they call the next hustle empowerment. But the truth remains, the only way to win in a casino is to own one. When billionaires hold the keys and our people hold the dice, the outcome is already written. True power doesn't come from spinning wheels, it comes from building them. Because every casino planted in a black neighborhood isn't a gift. It's a plantation with neon lights, flashy, loud, and owned by someone else. Chapter 11. The Fallout. Losing trust, losing legacy. Building an empire loses all meaning the moment your community stops believing in it and in you. Jay-Z's billion-dollar brand wasn't built on champagne or streaming. It was built on trust. That was his real currency. For decades, he stood as proof that a kid from Marcy could play Wall Street's game and win. But when the casino deal collapsed, that story cracked. The mask slipped, and people began to see the business behind the bravado. The irony? Jay-Z's biggest gamble wasn't the casino. It was betting that his community's faith would never run out. And now, that faith was gone. Scandal after scandal had chipped away at the image he built. The same blueprint that once symbolized hope now looked like a manual for monetizing it. Fans who once defended him began asking harder questions, not out of hate, but heartbreak. They had invested in his rise like shareholders in a dream, only to realize the dividends never came. Trust functions like capital. It grows slowly, but once it's gone, no amount of money can replace it. Jay-Z's credibility, once his most valuable asset, was now depreciating faster than any stock. The ripple effects were immediate. Brands that once lined up to collaborate grew cautious. Artists under his label stayed silent during controversies, afraid of the backlash. The empire wasn't collapsing, but it was corroding. Jay-Z's team tried to rebuild goodwill. They wrote out headlines about philanthropy, scholarships, criminal justice donations, HBCU funding. Many real, but many arriving right when the criticism peaked. The timing made generosity feel like strategy, not sincerity. The fallout wasn't just about reputation, it was about legacy. For years, Jay-Z represented the dream, wealth with purpose, success with integrity, but that image was tarnished. His empire now exposed as one that spoke the language of liberation while profiting from its aesthetics. The most painful part? The damage wasn't financial, it was spiritual. Communities that once saw Jay-Z as a hero now saw him as a warning that even black excellence can become exploitation when it drifts too far from accountability. The lesson endures beyond hip-hop, beyond Jay-Z himself. In capitalism, trust is the rarest form of currency because once it's gone, even billionaires can't buy it back. And for the first time in his career, Jay-Z couldn't out-hustle the truth. His greatest asset, his credibility, had become his greatest liability. Chapter 12, The Cost of Success, Balancing Individual Gain and Community Prosperity. Reaching the top means little if your community feels left at the bottom. Jay-Z's rise from Marcy Projects to billionaire status is undeniable. His story rewrote what was possible for a black man born into poverty, turning lyrics into ownership and hustle into empire. For decades, he represented the promise of progress, that wealth could be both personal victory and cultural revolution. But after the casino collapse, that narrative cracked wide open. The same community that once cheered his success began to ask a harder question. Did his wealth elevate us or just him? This wasn't just about one man. It was a reflection of a deeper tension in black capitalism itself. For generations, we've been told that individual success equals collective progress. But Jay-Z's story challenges that myth. His empire shows how easily representation can replace redistribution, how a symbol of empowerment can still leave the system untouched. Financially, Jay-Z mastered the game. He turned branding into leverage, outrage into equity, and culture into currency. But socially, his wins often came at the expense of shared growth. The math didn't balance. He built billion-dollar businesses, but few billion-dollar communities followed. The truth is, capitalism isn't inherently evil. It's just amoral. It rewards whoever plays it best. Other groups, Muslims, Jewish, and Asians, have used capitalism to build collective wealth, not just personal fortune. They circulate their dollars, fund local schools, invest in small businesses, and pass resources through generations. That's the difference between ownership and extraction, between thriving together and flexing alone. For the black community, Jay-Z's saga offers a mirror. We've celebrated representation, but rarely demanded participation. We've chased icons instead of infrastructure. We've applauded access while neglecting accountability. True power doesn't come from who's sitting at the billionaire table, it comes from who owns the table itself. The financial literacy lesson here is simple but transformative. Equity means inclusion. When a business wins, the community should win too. Wealth without shared benefit is just another performance, flashy, inspiring, but hollow. Jay-Z's legacy now stands at a crossroads. He can continue stacking wealth for personal glory, or pivot towards something more enduring: community ownership, transparent investment, and genuine redistribution. The blueprint he once rapped about could still become a manual for collective freedom if he chooses to build with the people, not on them. Capitalism isn't easy, but the game is fair when those who rise remember to lift. That's the real lesson of Jay-Z's empire. Success measured only in dollars dies with the billionaire. Success measured in empowerment lives forever.